Now, on my channel, I firmly say fuck YouTube and their goddamn retention metrics. I'm not here to waste your time. So first and foremost, if you want this just a pure and genuine fidget knife, it's an absolute home run. It's the most fidgety thing I've ever handled in my entire life. If you want a self-defense knife, I strongly encourage you to look elsewhere. And if you want just a pure EDC piece, this is good, by no means great, and there are some supreme and very heavy caveats to consider for just EDC. If you want to know why I feel that way, then by all means stay tuned, and if not, no hard feelings at all. I wish you the best of luck on your journey and I hope you find the knife you love. Anyways, let's get started. The gravity knife was originally designed in 1937 for the German Air Force. At the time, it was an absolute revelation. It was the first knife of its kind that could actually be fully retracted into the handle and opened up again with one hand. In the modern day, obviously, we have tons and tons of different things that can be opened up with one hand without any issue at all. So a knife being deployed with only one hand is no longer a revelation, it's just basically common sense and commonplace. Yes, slip joints and traditionals definitely do still exist and they still have a place in everyone's collections, but if you want a folding, locking knife that you can deploy with one hand and retract with one hand, the options are pretty much endless. So with that, the innovation of this knife immediately becomes obsolete. Now, there is a saying that anything that is old will eventually become new again given enough time. And this could have very much been a knife that is based off of an old knife, an old classic, but is just reimagined and reawakened for a new day. And in some ways, the Reate XO absolutely succeeds, and in others, it falls completely on its face. As far as the actual pros to this knife, the very streamlined design means ergonomically for almost everybody's hand, this is going to be an absolute home run. There are hot spots, yes, but there is nothing I would even remotely consider bad. They're basically just inconveniences. The actual action and how this knife deploys, be it like this, like that, like a ninja, is fun. Again, as just a fidget knife, this is an absolute home run. But if you want more than that, we have problems. But before I get into any of that, the edge geometry on this knife is not what I would call perfect, but it is so very close. As a knife and as a functional tool, this performs fantastically. Through everyday tasks like mailers, opening boxes, or just generalized everyday tasks, the edge geometry on this knife is 100% good to go. Now, I have done some testing with this knife, and so far the edge has held up very well, as you just saw, but I cannot tell you how well the LMAX is actually heat treated. LMAX has a very, and I mean a very small margin of error. If you hit in that right spot, which is between 59 and 61, it can be an absolutely great steel. But if it is even slightly overcooked or undercooked, it's basically trash. So over time and lots of testing, we'll know this is heat treated properly. As far as I can tell so far, it is. And again, the edge geometry is fantastic. The overall look and style of this piece is also something that I think is absolutely stellar. It is a beautiful, clean cut, ergonomic, stylish, classic yet somehow futuristic, 100% beautiful knife. It comes in either drop point, double edge, a Tonto is being released as well, DLC or satin. Purely on a looks perspective, this is one of my absolutely favorite knives. I love the way this knife looks. This is also, to me, the definition of a collection piece. Now, I am not a collector. I use everything that I own, but this is a knife that I think a collector would absolutely love because in this day and age, it is utterly and completely unique. And any of the problems I'll speak about soon, in just a purely collection standpoint, do not matter. This thing is a great design and a great piece to add to anyone's collection. Now, as far as the actual negatives, As you can hear, there is so much blade play. This knife will make an AliExpress budget clone or otherwise OTF blush. I love out the front knives, right? And they all have a little bit of blade play besides the really crazy expensive ones, but this is a manual knife. So you don't get any of the actual kind of like auto fidget actions to it. It's a manual knife and it has more blade play, more side to side, up and down. It goes in and out, side to side, up and down. It's just absolutely everywhere. Now that might not be a big deal to you, but to me, that's honestly a QC issue. And from Reate, I really expect better. If you take this knife apart, what you see is actually a very simple, beautifully simple design and mechanism. And the tolerances are honestly not there. There is small amounts of space per every single component in here, which didn't need to be there. For the time Reate takes to make these pieces, for the amount they take and they charge the customer, those small little pieces add up to a knife that again just rattles and moves around and has what I would consider to be problems. Are they a deal breaker? Absolutely not for me, but they are something that needs to be addressed. And this is what I would consider to be either a design flaw or a QC issue, or a bit of both. Now, I am not an engineer, but prior to doing this review, I reached out to some friends of mine who are engineers, who are knife designers, and I just showed them all the different pictures and pieces of this knife, and I asked them, how easy would it actually be to make these parts snug? And their responses being, to anybody that has a fully fledged shop and that has the knowledge to be able to do so, which Reate absolutely does, it would not be a hard process at all. And from doing that, everything would be shored up and there would be no rattle. It'd be secure in the handle and it'd be secure out. None of this. Now, the Reate EXO does not come with a clip. What it does come with is a very interesting sheath locking belt clip mechanism, right? And there's a few things about this that I just really don't know what they were thinking. First off, while the Kydex definitely does do its job, right? This knife is not going anywhere. It's very, very secure. It also does not feel good, or just, honestly, I don't know how to describe it. It just does not quite feel right to insert this knife or to pull it out. I don't know if it's the tolerances. I don't know if it's just the way the sheath is designed, but it almost feels cheap. And this knife isn't cheap, and Reate isn't known for cheap craftsmanship. So this could definitely just be in my head, but for me, it just feels very, very strange. Now keep in mind, I'm a fixed blade guy. I carry either Kydex or leather on my hip every day. So putting this on my hip and carrying it should not be an issue, but for whatever reason, it genuinely is. Secondly, from the factory, this clip only actually has one screw. Now, to be clear, right, I bought 4 of these knives. Yes, I know I have a problem. And 3 out of the 4 only had the one screw, to where this thing just rotates all the time, right? Now, I have contacted Reate and they are going to send me an extra set of screws. Apparently they're supposed to be in the box, but I bought 4 of these knives and 3 of them only came with one screw. So whenever you're actually trying to carry this knife, it's just doing this. It's just rotating over and over and over again, which feels very, very janky. Now, not having those screws required for a secure connection is by all means a QC issue. And just speaking from my personal experiences, again, I bought 4, 3 out of the 4 had those problems. That, at least in this small little sample size, is significant. Like, that's a very high margin for error. Maybe I just had really, really bad luck. It's entirely possible, but from my viewpoint, that's bad. But the way this knife is carried just feels like a proof of concept, not an actual finished product. Furthermore, there's no actual lock for the Kydex. I have quite a few of these kind of clips right here, and I love them, right? And this one's like a mini, which is like thinner than usual, and I love that. But it has this big button right here. As soon as you press it down, this pops out, and there's no lock on it. Every single one of the ones that I've handled has a lock on, and it's good for a good reason. Like, these are meant to be able to press down and then pop out. So if you happen to be fat, like my ass, or working, and just bending over in weird ass angles, this knife popped off my belt multiple times. Now, to be clear, I'm a laborer right now, so I'm bending down, squatting, picking things up, doing everything else. So maybe that's not the average person, but for my application of use, this sheath was a serious problem. I have since put a standard clip on there with one of the bigger ones, takes up all 4 screws, and you know, it fits much better. But what comes from the factory just, again, doesn't feel finished. Now, this is not something I normally talk about with just a regular everyday knife, right? But this is marketed as a self-defense knife. Promotional material for this basically shows a guy deploying in different angles and like going to a combat stance. Would I recommend this as a combat knife? Again, like I said at the start of the video, absolutely not. Now, yes, a firearm should always be your first method of self-defense. Yes, if not that, you know, a fixed blade. But coming from just a pure folding knife perspective, this is one of the worst by far. And it's one of the worst by far for 3 very simple reasons. 1, because of the tolerances being so very light, almost nothing, and this knife pops open, you are reliant upon the pressure for your hand, right? But during general EDC tasks or cutting tasks, that pressure is able to be maintained with no issues whatsoever. During an actual combat scenario, this knife will close on you just over and over and over again. Like your fingers move just that smallest amount and then it drops back down. So what me and my buddies did is, we're all martial artists, to be very clear. We taped the actual edge of this and then we put a plastic piece at the very end of the tip. So when I say it went into the handle, it physically can't go into the handle, but it goes about that far, enough to where, you know, damn well, if that tape wasn't there, that it would just go straight back in. And this happened over and over and over again. Secondly, one of the biggest things in a self-defense scenario is having that retention for your weapon, right? The jimping and the overall design of this piece does not sustain your hand under any circumstances, be it, you know, under wet circumstances or even just regular, like it pumps straight out. That's not generally an issue, right? You know, if this was just an EDC task, not a problem. But as far as a self-defense task, this knife, even with this micarta, is slippery, pulls straight out. And this jimping here is not functional. It is basically design. It's pretty, it's cool, I like the way it looks, but it is not functional whatsoever. This sheath, if you pull this knife out at even a slight angle, it will get caught up. It will slip out of your hands, and you might, in the case of my friend, get stabbed in the foot. Because of the design of the knife, the tip went out, it hit him, and then it immediately retracted in, so it wasn't a bad stab at all. He was wearing tennis shoes, so it wasn't a big deal. He had the tiniest little pinprick on his foot. But that is such a problem because, again, this is marketed as a self-defense knife. If this wasn't marketed as that, it wouldn't be an issue, right? But it is, and people are buying this sometimes as a self-defense tool. If you pull it out straight, the retention is almost too high because there's not much grip you can get. If you just pull straight out, you can get it, but it does not feel right. But again, if you pull it out and under times of duress, under times of actual self-defense where you need to fight for your life, you're not going to always do things perfectly. If it's even slightly to the side, like it does not come out. You can get it out with a whole bunch of force, but as you saw there, that took me like 3 or 4 seconds. And again, it's not even on my belt. So I'm not reaching down and fumbling with it. I'm having the most ideal circumstances possible, and I'm still having issues. And then again, because of the design of the knife, because it is so streamlined, which is the reason why the ergonomics are so good, there's just not much to grip on. You go to the side, same thing. You can get it out. Again, it's not impossible, but it will by all means lock into that sheath. It will compromise your defensive position. It will take away precious seconds. And it also just feels janky, like really, really janky. My intention is to get a leather sheath made for this because this system right here, honestly, to me is garbage. And so a knife that you have to modify out of the box, Not something that you choose to modify, not something that you decide to, I love this knife, I love a little bit more with custom scales onto it, or with an acid washed blade, or maybe I want a secondary sheath. If you have to modify a knife from the box for it to be functional, that is a true and genuine problem. So in closing, as a fidget knife, I love it. I bought 4 of these. Wow, that was a pretty bad fail. There you go. I bought 4 of these. I've already sold one of them to a friend of mine. I'm probably going to keep at least 2. I really and genuinely like this knife. I cannot say that enough, folks. I like this knife. But to me, it feels like a proof of concept, not a final, fully realized, finished product. And as that proof of concept, it's fantastic. But again, a proof of concept or something that you go, hey, here's the general idea, will this work? Can we make this functional? Can we make this beautiful? Can we make this what it needs to actually be? So as that concept, it succeeds. As a final finished product, in my opinion, it kind of fails. So as an innovation, does this succeed? In many ways, yes. It is new, it's cool, it's something that is fun. And you don't see it every day, or pretty much ever, honestly. And for that, this is really interesting. And as a collector, which I'm not, it's an amazing piece. As a user, which I am, it's decent. Now, as a self-defense practitioner, which I also am, it's an absolute failure. So if you like the Reate XO, that's going to heavily depend upon what your philosophy of use is. For me, again, as long as I understand those caveats, I like it. Again, I bought 4. So EDC, weird. Self-defense, failure. Just a damn cool collection piece, or a fidget knife, or just a fun factor knife, or just wanting something different, absolutely succeeds. So I don't normally do this, man, but EDC is going to be a 4 out of 10. Self-defense is going to be a 2 out of 10. Fidget factor, collection piece, fun piece, a 9.5 out of 10. I cannot give it a 10 because it doesn't have a clip on it and the sheath just feels janky, but just other than that, this knife is really interesting. Again, heavy blade play. There are problems to it, but it is fun. It is undeniably fun, and I'm not selling this. So the fact alone that this is a keeper says a lot about the actual piece. So should you go buy the Reate Knives XO? Again, if you just want a fidget or collection piece, yes. For anything else, no. Now in the comment section, if you have one of these knives, I want to know what you think about it. Do the problems I have mentioned bother you? Are they even there for your knives? More importantly, did your knife come finished, or is it also missing a screw for the actual clip? Just in general, talk to me about this knife because I really am curious. I've seen reviewers praise this knife to the moon and back, and I don't really understand why. But at the same time, most reviewers are fucking shills. I love you guys. I'm friends with most of you guys, but you know what you do. I know what you do. Let's be honest here. I don't market myself to brands. I don't ask for free stuff because I routinely burn bridges and shoot myself in the foot. And most brands and companies that want transparency really don't when it affects their bottom line. And the things I say normally do. So this is just my opinion, my own personalized opinion through actual applications of use. If you disagree with it, that's completely fine. This is just my personal opinion. Also, stay tuned for some actual torture testing videos. I tried to take videos of us actually training with this knife. My friends are little bitches. They refuse to be on camera. So if you are in or around Stockton, California, if you do practice martial arts, if you want to be on camera, please hit me up and we will train with this and so many other things to make some damn cool videos together. Because my friends, I love them, but for this one thing, man, y'all are some straight bitches. But anyways, folks, as always, I love you all with all of my heart. Please take care and bye-bye.